You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Author Cliff Schecter of The Real McCain, Why Conservatives Don't Trust Him and Why Independents Shouldn't, and progressive PR strategist and general all-around think tank guy. LibertasLLC.com. Do I have that right, Cliff?
Yes, you certainly do, Tom.
Okay, and in fact, I'm looking at it right now. Kind of a cool website, Libertas LLC. So, Cliff, if you can put on your pundit hat for a minute here, and I know you know a lot of folks inside the Beltway and you know what's going on in D.C. and all this kind of thing. Are the Republicans, to what extent, how far will the Republicans take this bluff on, or is it a bluff? They all of the Republicans in senior positions in public office. Mitch McConnell runs the Senate for the Republicans. John Boehner runs the House for the Republicans. They agree with Nancy Pelosi who runs the House Democrats, and Harry Reid, who runs the House or the Senate Democrats, and President Obama. All five of them agree we need to raise the debt ceiling. And it would be a really simple thing to pass a bill that's like, 3 sentences long that says, okay, we're going to raise the debt ceiling by $1 trillion or 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever. And let's get on with business and go back to work and let's start arguing about other things. But the Republicans are doing this almost a Cleavon Little thing, where they're putting a gun to their own heads and saying, we're going to blow up the entire United States of America if you don't go along with this. I don't get it.
Well, the problem is there isn't really much to get if you're looking for sound economic policy. I think you pointed out most of it in your intro and in that news segment you just did. If it's not depressing listening to that, I mean,
well, a lot of the folks on our commercial stations didn't hear that, so feel free to restate it.
Well, you pointed out an issue that I do some work on, the terror gap. Whether the Republicans will side with the NRA or the national security of the United States, and of course they side with the NRA. On economic issues, it's not much different. I mean, anything where they can gain political advantage. I think, obviously, the entire exercise of the Bush administration was one long sort of bow to crazy right-wing ideology, and what they did again and again didn't work and caused huge deficits and cut taxes and led us to these enormous deficits, as well as this huge gap between the wealthy and the poor, which I know you talk about often. And so Obama comes in, and obviously they want to keep doing the same policies because that makes their contributors happy and makes the lobbyists happy. But in addition to that, it's about political gain too. It's about they said it themselves that if they could take Obama down, that was their top priority.
Right. Mitch McConnell said that was his number one job was to prevent a re-election of Obama. So
right,
do they really think that crashing the world economic system is going to cause people to go out in the streets and say, "Hey, yeah, we love those Republicans"?
But the problem is that you're right. But for that analysis, we have to treat them like they're logical people that actually think about what they do.
Well, and I guess that analysis also assumes that more than a small percentage of Americans pay attention to what's going on in politics outside of the 3 weeks before an election, which is unfortunately not the case.
Well, no, that's actually absolutely right too. In the end, they're going to have to raise the debt ceiling because their business benefactors will get very angry at them if they don't. But in the meantime, playing politics with anything and everything, as you said earlier, and we just talked about national security, economic policy, foreign policy, social issues. It really doesn't matter. I mean, as long as there's political gain to be had, if President Obama can be made to look worse, if the choice was if they could bring the economy down. If that somehow would get people to believe that President Obama was a Kenyan, I think they might go for it.
Well, there's a flip side to this, though, Cliff. We're talking with Cliff Schecter. His website, LibertasLLC.com. That's kind of cool.
It was a good Freudian slip, though. I like
Libertas,
that.
Yeah. LLC.com. The flip side of this is that the Democrats could play this exact same game. They could be out there saying, if you guys don't go along with us and do what we want and the Bush tax cuts, for example, that, just make a unilateral demand of some kind, then, we're not going to sign off on this thing, and there will be no more wars. There will be no more money going to defense contractors. There will be no more money going to all the Republican, honeypots and piles or whatever around the country. And, or they could simply say, we don't want anything except to raise the debt ceiling. Give us a clean bill to raise the debt ceiling, which is probably more the honorable and straightforward way to do it. Quit playing games. And because if you don't, and let's make this very clear, if you don't, everything is going to come, they could play it in a way that would just horrify the American people. And I'm not hearing a lot of that from the Democrats. I'm hearing that from pundits on TV, but not from the Democrats. Is it that they've concluded it's not yet time to play hardball, or is it the old Will Rogers joke about I don't belong to an organized political party, I'm a Democrat, or what is it?
I think it's that, the Democrats playing hardball. That's an amazing thing to even think about.
It's kind of an oxymoron.
Right. We've gone through this exercise again and again. We went through it with the public option. When President
FDR
Obama
knew how to take names and kick ass. Harry Truman knew how to do this. Lyndon Johnson used to. Look, LBJ came into office. He cut poverty in half in 4 years. The Republicans were all screaming that he was turning the U.S. into the USSR. He did it anyway.
He'd stare at people and scare them into doing what he wanted them to.
Well, and actually, there's the story of the chairman of the Fed was jacking up interest rates as the Humphrey election was coming up, and LBJ just slammed him up against the wall in the Oval Office and lifted him, 4 inches off the floor by his neck.
Well, for the days of that Democratic Party when you had to stand there and meekly take notes from LBJ while he was using the restroom.
Yeah.
He's
the master of intimidating people.
Right. The point you bring up there is that was the roles used to be reversed. It was the Republicans that were the wimpy on the defense party, and the Democrats that were on offense. The only difference was Democratic policies worked. They won World War II. They won World War I. They got us, civil rights legislation. They got us Medicare and Medicaid and everything. They built strong unions. They brought this country, for 50 years to being prosperous and forward-looking and progressive and the beacon of light, I would say, overall. Not to say we didn't make any mistakes. We certainly did. But that was when the Democrats were the ones who did have courage. But ever since Reagan, I know, again, you talk about this often, they've just let the Republicans grab the narrative. They've accepted what Republicans say about them, which is that they're weak, and that they can't stand up for their principles, and they've sort of taken that to heart. I know this is a very, very, easy analysis. It takes longer than just this, but this is the best I can do in the time frame. And so, yeah, of course. Look, this is one issue. There's many others that go back into the terror gap. If the Democrats are defending, the right for terrorists to get their hands on guns, they'd have every Democrat in ads with bin Laden. Hell, they might bring back Saddam Hussein again and put him in ads with them. We know what they would do. And yet
the Republicans just did this. What you're talking about is where the Republicans just voted to say that, or to block a provision that would prevent known terrorists on the terrorist watch list from buying guns at gun shows.
That's exactly right. And so, I look back, to me, the tenor was set. There's, as we said, a longer-term tenor since Reagan, but it really was set when Obama came in, and he could have asked for whatever at that point. He had the will of the public behind him. He had 80% approval ratings. There's a lot of excitement, a 13 million member email list. Had won states like Indiana that no Democrat had won, since LBJ. And he could have said, this is the stimulus I'm going to get, and Susan Collins and Arlen Specter and Olympia Snow and even, Dick Lugar and the rest of you, I'm more popular in your states than you are. And if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to come there, I'm going to barnstorm, and I'm going to tell people you're the one who's in the way, you're getting in the way of them having jobs.
Right.
And my guess is they would have given in, but instead he immediately gave in, and that's what he's been doing since.
Do you think well, let's hope that he's figured this out so that after the next election, if he wins it, and I believe he will, that he will do exactly what you described. And I wish that you were in the White House, Cliff Schecter, instead of some of the guys who are talking to him. LibertasLLC.com, the website. Cliff, thanks for dropping by.
Thanks so much, Tom.